In the early 20th century, the city of New Orleans was known for its vibrant culture, jazz music, and mysterious charm. But in 1918, that lively rhythm was interrupted by fear and bloodshed. A shadow moved through the streets at night, a phantom killer who entered homes like a ghost, struck like a demon, and vanished without a trace. He carried no name, no face, and left behind only the bodies of his victims and an eerie calling card. The people began to whisper about him with dread. They called him the Axeman. The story begins on a quiet night in May 1918. New Orleans was resting under a blanket of summer heat. In a small home on the corner of Upperline and Magnolia Streets, a grocer named Joseph Maggio and his wife Catherine were asleep in their bed. They had no enemies, lived a simple life, and were well known in the Italian immigrant community. But that night, someone entered their home by chiseling out a panel from their back door. The killer didn't use a gun or poison. He used an axe. The couple was attacked brutally as they slept. Catherine's throat was slashed so deeply that she was almost decapitated, and Joseph's head was smashed in with the blunt end of the axe. When Joseph's brothers, Jake and Andrew Maggio, discovered the scene, it was a nightmare. Blood covered the walls and floor. A bloody razor blade lay nearby. A heavy axe, belonging to Joseph himself, was found outside. The police were baffled. There was no sign of robbery. The killer hadn't taken anything. He had entered silently, killed savagely, and disappeared into the night. The city was shocked. Newspapers reported the horrific double murder in gory detail. But most people believed it was an isolated incident, perhaps a crime of passion or revenge. That belief didn't last long. Just a few weeks later, another attack happened. On June 27, 1918, Louis Bessumer and his mistress Harriet Lowe were attacked in his grocery store home. The attacker again entered by removing a panel from the back door. Louis was struck in the head with an axe while sleeping. Harriet was also beaten brutally. They both survived the initial attack, but Harriet died later from complications. Before she died, she accused Louis himself of being the attacker, creating even more confusion. But Louis was eventually released due to lack of evidence. What puzzled investigators was the method. Again, nothing was stolen. Again, a chiseled door panel and the use of the victim's own axe. The killer didn't bring his own weapon. He used whatever axe he could find at the scene. And he didn't make noise. He didn't break windows or force entry violently. It was almost as if he melted into the darkness like a ghost. The third attack happened in August 1918. Anna Schneider, a pregnant woman, was attacked in her sleep. Her scalp was torn open, and her face was covered in blood. Her husband found her alive and rushed her to the hospital. Miraculously, both she and her baby survived. But again, the pattern repeated. The attacker had entered without warning, used a blunt object, and vanished. By now, the city was beginning to panic. Italian grocers seemed to be the main targets. Some believed the murders were connected to mafia or a secret society. Others thought it was the work of a madman with a grudge against immigrants. Theories spread like wildfire. People started sleeping with weapons under their pillows. Doors were reinforced, windows nailed shut. Fear crept into every neighborhood, every household. But the Axeman wasn't done. On August 10, 1918, Joseph Romano, another Italian grocer, was attacked in his home. His two nieces, Pauline and Mary, lived with him and heard the noise. They rushed to his room and saw a dark figure fleeing into the night. Joseph had been struck in the head and died 2 days later. The nieces described the man as tall, dark-clothed, and wearing a slouched hat, but the description wasn't enough. The police had no fingerprints, no solid leads, no clear motive. This wasn't just crime, it was terror. The Axeman didn't follow the usual rules. He didn't rob, he didn't rape, and he didn't leave witnesses, unless by accident. His only purpose seemed to be murder. Cold, brutal, and senseless murder. After the Romano killing, the attacks suddenly stopped. For months, there was silence. The city tried to return to normal, but the shadow of the Axeman still lingered. Every bump in the night, every creak of wood, every dark alley reminded people that he might return. And return he did, but this time, not just with his axe. He came with words, mocking the people of New Orleans and promising more blood. In March 1919, a letter was sent to the local newspaper. It was signed by the Axeman of New Orleans, and it was unlike anything anyone had ever read before. The letter wasn't just a threat. It was a chilling, taunting message from a killer who seemed to enjoy his fame. "I am not a human being," he wrote, "but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell." He claimed he was beyond the reach of the police, beyond the law, and that he would strike again. But then came the strangest part. The Axeman said he loved jazz music, and that on a particular night, March 19th, he would spare anyone who was playing jazz in their homes. "If your jazz band plays, you're safe," he wrote. "If not, you may get the axe." That night, the city transformed. Every dance hall was full. Every home had a record player spinning jazz records. Musicians played on balconies and in the streets. The Axeman had turned an entire city into a jazz party, out of fear. And true to his word, no one was killed that night. Who was this man? Why did he kill? Why did he stop? Was he insane, or was there a deeper motive? These questions would haunt New Orleans for years to come. The Axeman may have been silent, but his legend had just begun. After the strange letter from the Axeman appeared in the newspaper, the city of New Orleans was turned upside down. On the night of March 19th, 1919, jazz music filled the air. People who had never listened to jazz before were now playing it loudly in their homes. Some even hired live bands to play on their front porches. Clubs and bars were overflowing with customers. Fear had turned the whole city into a celebration just to avoid death. That night, the Axeman didn't kill anyone, and that made the story even more bizarre. Who was this killer that followed such strange rules? Was he watching from the shadows, smiling as people danced for their lives? For a few weeks, there was silence. People began to relax again. Some thought the letter had been a joke. Maybe it wasn't even from the real Axeman. But then in August 1919, the silence was broken once again by blood. On August 10th, a man named Steve Bocca, another Italian grocer, was attacked in his home. He survived, but had no memory of the attack. Just like the earlier cases, he had been struck with a heavy object while sleeping. The door had been forced open, and nothing was stolen. It was the same eerie pattern. The killer didn't leave clues. He came in the night, hit hard, and vanished without a sound. Only a few weeks later, on September 3rd, Sarah Lawman, a young woman who lived alone, was also attacked in the same manner. She, too, survived, but her scalp had been cracked open, and she was found in a pool of blood. Neighbors had broken into her house when they hadn't seen her for a day. Again, the attacker entered by chiseling out a panel of the door. Again, an axe was found nearby, belonging to Sarah herself. Now it was clear the Axeman had returned, and he was still choosing his victims carefully. Many were Italian or immigrants. Many were grocers or lived near grocery stores. And all were attacked in their beds while sleeping. But the reason behind the killings remained a complete mystery. Was he punishing a certain community? Was he mentally disturbed? Or was there something deeper? Something hidden in the shadows of New Orleans? The final known murder attributed to the Axeman happened on October 27, 1919. Frank Pepitone, a grocer, was asleep next to his wife when he was struck repeatedly with an axe. His wife saw the attacker, but described only a shadowy figure disappearing into the night. Frank died from his wounds, and the city once again fell into panic. But this time, there were no more letters, no more taunts, no more jazz demands. The Axeman had killed again and then disappeared forever. After that, the attacks stopped completely. No more grocers were found bleeding in their beds. No more doors were found chiseled open. It was as if the Axeman had vanished into thin air. Some believed he had died. Others thought he moved to another city and continued his killing spree under a different name. A few believed he had never existed, that maybe there were different killers copying each other's methods. But most people believed in the legend of one man, a ghostly figure with a taste for blood, a love for jazz, and a hatred for peace. The police never caught the Axeman. Over the years, many suspects were arrested and questioned, but none could be proven guilty. One theory focused on a man named Joseph Mumford. He had a criminal background and was believed to have been connected to blackmail, extortion, and even murder. Interestingly, Mumford was shot and killed in Los Angeles in 1921 by Esther Albano, whose husband, Mike Pepitone, was one of the Axeman's last victims. She claimed she believed Mumford was responsible for her husband's death. The timing seemed too perfect. Was Mumford really the Axeman? Could Esther have gotten her revenge? The police never confirmed it, and no solid evidence linked him to the killings. Still, many people believe the murder stopped after his death for a reason. Even today, more than 100 years later, the mystery remains unsolved. Historians, crime writers, and internet detectives have all tried to solve the case. They've looked at old police reports, re-examined evidence, and studied every detail. But the truth remains hidden. There are too many missing pieces. No fingerprints, no confessions, just a list of victims, a few newspaper articles, and a strange letter that still sends shivers down readers' spines. Some say the Axeman was mentally ill, a man who believed he was chosen to carry out some dark mission. Others think he was a criminal using murder to scare or control the Italian community. And a few believe the whole story was larger than any one man, that it was connected to organized crime, corrupt police, or even supernatural forces. After all, how could someone walk into a house, kill without making noise, and vanish without a trace? Not once, not twice, but over and over again, the fear he created was real. People were terrified to sleep at night. Families locked their doors with extra bolts. Many left town. Children were warned not to speak of the Axeman, as if saying his name might summon him again. And yet, no one ever knew when or why he would strike. He didn't always kill. Sometimes his victims survived. Sometimes he skipped weeks or even months between attacks. But every time, he left behind the same terrifying sign, a door broken by a chisel, a bloodied axe, and a city full of fear. The Axeman had no clear motive. He wasn't stealing money or jewelry. He wasn't targeting just the rich or the poor. He wasn't killing for revenge, or at least no one knew why he chose his victims. And that's what makes the story so haunting. He didn't just take lives. He took peace of mind. He made people feel unsafe in their own homes, in their own beds, in their own dreams. Even now, some homes in New Orleans still have old scars, a patched door, a broken window, a memory of the night the Axeman came. His legend lives on in books, podcasts, and films. And in the silence of midnight, when the city grows quiet and the music fades, some still wonder, is he out there? The final part of this story isn't about the Axeman's identity. It's about the impact he left behind. How one man, in less than 2 years, turned a joyful musical city into a place of nightmares. His Axeman had gone quiet, but the echo of his terror still rings. The streets of New Orleans had become silent after the infamous letter of the Axeman in March 1919. As promised, the city filled the night with the sound of jazz. Clubs were packed. Homes played gramophones loudly, and every corner vibrated with the rhythm of trumpets and saxophones. The city, in its fear, chose music as its shield. That night, no one was killed, and just like that, the Axeman vanished. But the calm was not a victory. It was a mystery. Police, journalists, and ordinary people wondered, did the killer stop because he achieved what he wanted? Or did he disappear for another reason? There were no clues, no more letters, and no more bloody scenes. People began to question everything. Was the Axeman ever one person? Or was it all a ghost story that became too real? Theories poured in from all directions. One theory suggested the Axeman was a man with deep hatred against Italian grocers, as many victims were Italian-American shopkeepers. Maybe it was a personal vendetta. Another theory believed the killer was mentally ill, someone who imagined himself as an agent of music or darkness. There were even wilder suggestions. Some believed the Axeman was a supernatural being, a spirit that fed on fear and music. The dramatic letter claiming to be a demon only fueled these ideas. But perhaps the strangest part was that the police never found any solid suspect. Some names came up, like Joseph Mumford, a criminal with a violent past. Decades later, crime writer Colin Wilson mentioned a woman named Esther Albano, whose husband was allegedly murdered by Mumford. According to some unconfirmed reports, she tracked down Momfer and killed him in Los Angeles in 1920, claiming he was the Axeman. But there's a problem. No official record proves Momfer existed. No police files. No death certificate. Nothing. It was like chasing a shadow that never had a body. The city tried to move on, but the scars stayed. The Axeman had murdered at least 6 people, injured many more, and terrified an entire city. And yet, he or she was never caught. How could a killer leave behind so many victims, bloody crime scenes, and an entire trail of chaos, and still disappear without a trace? Historians and true crime lovers still debate the details. Some believe the Axeman was multiple people copying each other. Others think it was a single man who simply died, moved, or was arrested for a different crime. But because the police files were incomplete and forensic science was primitive in 1918 to 1919, the case remains cold. One thing that's clear is that the Axeman was not just a killer. He was a performer. He used fear like an instrument. That chilling letter, the reference to jazz, and the timing of the attacks all show a strange mind who wanted more than blood. He wanted the city's attention. He wanted control. And for a brief, terrifying time, he had it. Even today, the legend of the Axeman is part of New Orleans folklore. Songs have been written about him. He appears in novels, documentaries, and even the TV show American Horror Story. Tour guides walk visitors to the locations of his crimes, whispering stories of murder and jazz into the ears of the curious. But as the years go on, one question still haunts the streets. Who was the Axeman of New Orleans? We may never know. And perhaps that's exactly what the Axeman wanted. If you found this story as chilling as we did, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel AI Alvantis for more dark mysteries and true crime tales. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an unsolved case from history's shadows. Got a theory about who the Axeman really was? Drop it in the comments below. We love reading your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.